So I want to mention those few cases, those few rare instances where the comic books will get their physics wrong, even with a miracle exemption or two. And the last example I want to talk about is the Atom. The Atom is a superhero from DC Comics who had the ability to shrink down to subatomic sizes. And I mean really subatomic. He would, in one story, he and a friend had shrunken down, and they're having a conversation as they sit on an electron. And at one point, the friend suddenly interrupts the Atom and says, "We're smaller than oxygen molecules. How are we breathing?" And the Atom gives the only answer that he can. He says, "I'm not sure." But the Atom is one of my favorite superheroes because in his secret identity, he is Ray Palmer, physics professor. And as told in Showcase Comics number 34, he was trying to develop a shrinking ray that was unsuccessful, or it would shrink objects, but they'd keep blowing up. And because it was missing that one key ingredient, right, which turned out to be a fragment of a white dwarf star that he found. Presumably because it has the word dwarf in its name, it has miniaturization capabilities unsuspected by astrophysicists. So here we see Ray Palmer, physics professor, trying to lift this chunk of white dwarf star matter. He says, "So heavy I can hardly lift it." Puff. "I don't know the odds against one white dwarf hitting another out in space." Puff. "But it could happen. And when it did, this piece drifted until it landed in this field. White dwarfs are dense because they're formed of degenerate matter." Puff. "Matter from which the electrons have been stripped, greatly compressing them." Well, the electrons are still in there. They're just in the lowest quantum states, which makes them very rigid. But he's right in the sense of degenerate matter. By the way, in the 1960s, physics professors drove caddy convertibles. And they are extremely dense. Not as dense as neutron star material, but we understand why Ray Palmer is huffing and puffing, because the density of white dwarf star matter is about 3 million grams per cubic centimeter. So if we estimate that rock is a sphere with a radius of 6 inches, no wonder he's straining and groaning, because it weighs over 50,000 tons. And I have to point out that technically this is not actually a blooper. And that is because we physics professors are just that strong.